you onto the training today. I'm using a new software which I don't usually use, so do bear with me. But my objectives for today's training, I'm really excited to be bringing this to you, is to really give you an insight into what deal sourcing is all about. I've been connecting with a lot of you guys through social media or through events that I've run or through free strategy sessions, and I'm commonly being asked about how can you get started in terms of building your passive income if you've got no funds, or if you've not got a guarantor, or even from advanced investors. I find everybody wants to create passive income and add additional streams of income to what they're doing, or what they're not doing, or quit their jobs, right? And the purpose of me bringing this training to you is to really give you clear-cut practical steps, knowing what you need to do to go out there and make it happen. So a little bit about myself. Before I actually go into talking about myself, I just want to get to know a little bit about you guys. So I'm just going to pop up a question there for you. Just want to know really whether you're currently investing, whether you're starting out, or whether you're new to investing, or whether you already are investing. So yeah, if you could do that, if you could complete the poll, that'd be fantastic. Three of you haven't voted, so you've probably got your social media on. If you've got your Facebook pages and stuff open, can I please ask that we minimize them just so we get the best out of this training? Okay, excellent. So we've got 50% of you guys are investing, 50% of you guys are starting out. So it's quite interesting. And yeah, as I said, the purpose of this training is to really give you an insight into what you can actually. 50% of you guys are starting out, so it's quite interesting. And yeah, as I said, the purpose of this training is to really give you an insight into what you can actually. Hi there, guys. Sorry about that. It seems we cut out there. So yeah, it seems that 50% of us are investing and 50 are starting out. So hopefully this will give you guys a great insight into what deal sourcing is about and how it can help you to develop your current property business, or whether you're first starting out, how you can actually get out of your jobs if you're in your job wanting to quit your 9 to 5. So a little bit about myself. I'm Peter Singh. I know some of you guys already know me. My background, I used to do minimum wage jobs in supermarkets and factories, production line work. Went through some serious adversity in my early 20s. It gave birth to an opportunity to see life in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise. And since then, I've just been on this journey whereby I've just been seeking to be the best version of myself, and in doing so, I've been able to create some good results through my property journey. Now I'm operating remotely from Bali. When I'm back in Bali now, I was in Philippines for the last few weeks because there's a volcano eruption here. But so yeah, it really has transformed my life from where I was to where I am now. When I look back, I feel very grateful. But the reality is, I realized that the reason that I've been able to get to where I've got to has been simply a result of being persistent, consistent, and putting in the work. And if I could turn the clock back, one of the strategies that I would have done from day one would have been deal sourcing. Now, one of the reasons that is because it enables you to build your cash flow up a lot faster, especially when your money's strapped in other deals. And I just never used to see it in that way. So deal sourcing was something that I started to do after 2 years of investing in property, when I realized I was leaving so much money on the table. A little bit about my achievements in property. So I've built and developed profitable rent-to-rent businesses for myself and with my clients. I've coached over 800 people nationwide. Spoke at Wembley Super Conference after year one of my rent-to-rent journey. Since then, grown an online community of over 1,000 people. Have helped quite a lot of people achieve 5 figures a month within 6 to 18 months of training with me. And I've hit rock bottom and I've come back quite a few times. And the reason I share that with you is because I feel that the journey that I've been on has been one that really did hit me rock bottom. And when I look at the results that have unfolded after, it really has made me realize that absolutely anybody can do it. And a lot of the people that I coach and mentor and work with, I find are sometimes in a better position than what I was when I started out. So I really do drill it into them that, hey guys, you've got no excuse. If I can do it, you can do it. And one of the things that have really helped me has been that I've tried to keep it simple every step of the way. I try not to complicate things. And in doing so, it really helps to just laser focus and make things happen. I often find that sometimes it's easy for us to be distracted by lots of different strategies. There's so many options out there. But if passive income is your priority, then strategies like deal sourcing and rent to rent are great ways to build your cash flow up to go on to then invest in bigger and better things. So I think it's a great stepping stone strategy, and it's a strategy that is definitely scalable. So I founded Multi-Let Success in 2013, having mentored and helped some of my friends achieve some results, which then inspired me to start helping more people, which was in alignment with my bigger vision, which is ultimately a platform to inspire and create lasting change and impact the lives of as many people as possible. So what we're going to go through today is I'm going to be sharing with you the benefits of deal sourcing, why we should do it, where to find the deals, the top 3 mistakes most investors are making, how you can avoid them, the process for sourcing deals effectively, the legals, so the types of contracts you should be using and why, what types of deals to look for, maximizing profitability for source deals. So there are a few tips and tools that you should be using when you're operating your sourcing business that can maximize your profitability without compromising on value. It's important to always be giving value when we do that. Focusing on win-win. I find that one of the things that's helped myself and many of my successful students has been focusing on genuinely creating win-win situations for people. So also how to start deal sourcing with 0 expenses. Now, a lot of people say, is it really true? Can you really start a business with literally 0, even if you've got to surely have to set up a website or something? But the reality is that with deal sourcing, you literally can start with 0, provided you know how to find the deals and you know how to speak to the agents and the vendors. You can source your first deal and then you can get your website, etc., set up if you really want to. How and where to build your investor network. That's really important. Now, I had a chat with a guy today, and he was asking me about whether it's possible to find lots of deals. I said, well, we're actually flooded with deals right now. And the reality is, I think that a lot of people misunderstand and think that it's actually finding deals that's actually challenging. But the reality is once you've got the criteria and you've got the tools and you know what you're looking for, and then you can actually find deals consistently. And I think it's a lot more challenging to actually build your investor network. Once you've got your investor network, you can literally be finding deals to order. So you've got investors telling you, we want these types of deals, and you go out there and find it. So you can do it back to front, which is, I think, is a lot more effective. And then on top of that, the last thing you want to be doing is spending all your time searching deals or getting VAs to search deals only to find you've not got investors to buy them. So it's important to spend just as much time, if not more, on building the investor relationships. So I'll be sharing with you how to scale your 5-figure a month deal sourcing business now. With deal sourcing, it doesn't take long to hit 5 figures a month, provided you're consistent in your approach. Just to put it into perspective, deal sourcing. So what is deal sourcing? Now, deal sourcing is basically qualifying, negotiating, packaging up the best value deals for investors. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. You're meeting investors' demands and requirements, and you're building relationships with agents, vendors, landlords, and investors. Deal sourcing is basically an opportunity to find and package deals for people that are looking for them. They might not have time to look for the deals. They might not have the team in place to look for deals, or they might want to grow their portfolio as fast as possible, and they're looking to take on deals that deal sourcers find. Now, ultimately, when you do build a deal sourcing team, eventually you want to have a virtual team in place, so you can actually scale it up. And that's the stage that we're at now, where we've got a virtual team in the Philippines. They find deals, they call agents, they qualify deals, they package them up, and they send them out to investors. And then they engage with investors as well and answer their questions. Ultimately, that's the level that you would want to build it to if you want to scale it up. And the reality is that this can be done remotely without the need for you to even visit a single property. So I think deal sourcing is a great strategy, even if you're in full-time employment. In fact, it's probably the best strategy if you're in full-time employment, because it can literally be set up as remote from day one, without it costing you an arm and a leg, simply because you don't have to have any staff members to start with. Even if you did get a VA, that's purely by choice. You could get them to do deal searching. But the reality is, the steps that you take, even if you're searching deals for half an hour a day and calling agents for half an hour a day, you're making progress. Just by those two actions alone, you're positioning yourself to probably source on at least a deal in a month, which I think is excellent, considering one deal could potentially source between, say, £1,500 up to £2,500, £3,000. So why deal sourcing? Now, it's the fastest way to build the bottom line of your business. And the reason I say that is because if you was doing another strategy, let's say rent-to-rent serviced accommodation, or rent-to-rent HMO, or flipping, or lease options, you still have to wait for the break-even point. Say, for example, rent-to-rent serviced accommodation deal. This could be a property you take on from an agent where you pay 6 weeks deposit, a month advance rent, agency fees. Ultimately, it's going to be taking you maybe, say, 6 to 9 months to break even. Sometimes it can even be a year break even point. With deal sourcing, you're not only breaking even the minute you've sold the deal, which should, like, from the moment you found the deal to sold it to an investor, that time frame you should be aiming for at least within like 3 or 4 days. That means that you're not just breaking even in 3 or 4 days, you're actually profiting in 3 or 4 days. And if you're averaging, say, $2,000 a sale, to achieve that through an SA that breaks even on, say, month 10, you're actually not going to get the $2,000 profit until a year later, month 12, and you would have had to put a lot of work into that. So I find that deal sourcing is great, simply because it can be set up in a way that it doesn't require you to put a lot of legwork or physical energy into it by managing properties, etc. And if you set a realistic goal of say 1 to 3 deals a month, you're well on your way to be achieving like 2 to 6 grand a month straight away. That would probably get most people out of their jobs. Now, once you're out of your job, then you can really start focusing on actually growing it as a business. And the great thing is you don't just have to focus on sourcing for one strategy. It could be serviced accommodation initially, and then you might move on to sourcing HMO deals. And I'll go into that in a little bit detail later. So it helps to build lasting relationships with agents as well, landlords, investors, and developers. So you grow your network with your net worth. So what I'm saying, no, what I'm trying to say here is that you're building lasting relationships with agents. Now, these agents you're building relationships are for deals that you're finding for other people. So the moment you do decide to take a deal on for yourself, it's going to be a lot easier simply because you've already built relationships with these agents, not just for one strategy. It could be 2 or 3. So you're quite a credible person with the agents that have said yes to you. So what it does is eventually you're positioned you're positioned very well for your own deals. And I think to get there through deal sourcing is excellent. So you're not restricted to areas as well. When you're deal sourcing, it's not like you have to stick to one patch because it's within 45 minutes to an hour of where you live. And I've got my viewpoints on that as well, because even if I was doing rent serviced accommodation, which I was when I started out, initially I was doing the same thing, focusing on 45 minutes within 45-minute distance from where I lived. And then I realized that wasn't going to allow me to go and live in Bali. So I then reshaped my business to lay the foundations from a place of, I need to set this business up so I'll make myself replaceable. And that's how you should approach any business. When you approach it with that mindset, it enables you to see things and do things in a way that ultimately enables you to create passive income. And that's what we're in this for. Now, when you're not restricted to areas with deal sourcing, that gives you the great thing of being able to find deals anywhere in the country, provided they stack up, is compliant with local authority guidelines, then you're good to go. And the good thing about that is you can target investors anywhere in the country as well and literally meet their requirements. So there's a lot of scope there. You become an expert at growing other people's businesses. So you're adding value to people's lives. You're finding people deals, and that even whether it's the first deal to the first investor that you provide, that could be the deal that sets them on their path to quitting their job. So you're doing something good, and then you naturally get more inspired. You supply a deal to an investor, you see them doing well, and then you want to do it again for another investor, or you want to help that person actually grow their portfolio. Then you can actually, once you've actually sourced the first deal, sit down and ask them what are your goals, what you're trying to achieve. Is this the only area that you're looking in? So you should always be engaging and nurturing the relationships, understanding more about what your existing investors are looking for, and then going out there and making that happen for them. And all you need is a laptop and an internet connection, no viewing, setting up properties, managing bookings. Now, you might be saying, well, I do need to go and view it because otherwise they might cut me out and go straight to the agent. Now, we do have provisions in place to prevent that from happening. And ultimately, you do want to set it up so it doesn't require you to go to the viewing, because ultimately you're giving up your time to do that. And that's giving up your time on a task that doesn't require you to be there. If you are going to give up your time to go out there and do face-to-face meetings, ultimately you want that to be with potential investors. Although these are potential investors because, yeah, you could close the deal by meeting them there. Ultimately, you want investors who are serious. So if they've done the number crunching and you've sent them the PDF about the deal, the type of investor you want is the one that will just walk into that property and say, yes, that works for me. That's fine. That's good. And if it didn't work, you get feedback from them, asking them why it didn't work for them. And that way you're pre-qualifying your investors, and you're only going to move with fast moving investors rather than having 30, 40, 50 investors, out of which only say 3 or 4 are actually serious. You might as well just pre-qualify all your investors and have a smaller list of investors, but an effective one and the right one. And I'll be sharing with you a little bit more about how you can do that. So finding opportunities, where to look and why. Now, here's just a few areas. This is just taking London, for example. You've got to stay. This is like if we're finding serviced accommodation deals. Now, if you don't know what serviced accommodation is, it's pretty much properties that we provide accommodation to for guests staying on short-term lets. Maybe they'll be there for 2 to 7 nights. Usually, you would, and if you was first starting out with serviced accommodation, it's an alternative to hotels. That's the kind of level of service that we're providing. It's city apartments usually, and they're done to a luxury standard, especially if it's for business travelers as well. And you're charging on a night by night rate. So a few places that you're likely to find serviced accommodation deals will be near stadiums, football stadiums, for example, exhibition centres like Excel. You've got NEC in Birmingham, city centre apartments, developments, new builds you should be on the lookout for. Tourist attractions like Windsor Castle, for example. And then you'll find that you would initially in your first year probably advertise on Airbnb and booking.com once you have got a serviced accommodation, if you were managing it. Now that's a different story. We'll go into that in a moment. But your client who you're sourcing it to initially would probably advertise for their guests to come to the property through Airbnb and booking.com. They'll build their guest database up and then they would aim to work towards direct bookings. Now, another thing that you can do as an add-on to your deal sourcing is you could be sourcing serviced accommodation deals, for example, or you could be sourcing rent-to-rent HMO deals and then offering a management service of say 15 or 20% of the rental income. And that's a great strategy because that will end up on average averaging you about £400 or £500 a month, including the sourcing fee for the first year. And then after that, it'll probably average out to about 300, 350. And you're achieving that each month, every month, without having to put anything into the deal. And the management terms can be clearly outlined as well, what the do's are and what the don'ts are, and you can be very clear on that. So I think the great thing about deal sourcing is not just the fact that you can source a deal, you have the option to, if you wanted to get your feet a little bit more wet, you can manage 1 or 2 apartments initially for them, and then you might think, all right, I've got the confidence now, I want to go and do my own deal. And I know some people who are doing that, and they're doing very well with that model. And ultimately, I believe that that's the best model right now, which is deal sourcing and managing for the investor. And then eventually these deals that you're doing can manifest into great JV opportunities later on down the line with the investor. So say, for example, it gets to a stage where you want to buy your own deals. You probably find if you've built a relationship with your investor you've been managing deals for, they'll probably support you on that as well. So the other great thing about sourcing deals is you're building investor network, which is going to come in handy for when you want to take on your own investments. So top 3 mistakes made by investors and how you can avoid them. Now, not nurturing investor relationships due to managing a VA or deal search. And the amount of times I hear this from people, I've not had time to go to an investor meeting or network with 5 investors like you told me this month. I said, why? Well, I've been managing my VA, I've been dealing with this, I've been dealing with that, I've been searching deals. These are $2-3 an hour tasks. There's nothing to manage with the VA. You give them a clear process to search the deals and leave them to it. It's as simple as that. The only time you really need to get nitty-gritty with managing a VA is when you've got really complex tasks that they're doing. But initially, deal searching is not complex at all. Provided you've given them a clear criteria and rules to go by, you can pretty much leave them to it, which then allows you to focus on building investor relationships. You might choose to do the appointment setting, the calling agents yourself initially, or you could hire a VA to do that. And again, that doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. So The other mistake that I see people making a lot is not knowing your investor requirements clearly enough. And as a result, you're not able to create a win-win. Take the time to get to know them properly and keep them engaged. So any potential investor, we should be firstly pre-qualifying them, understanding what their situation is, what they're looking to achieve, what types of deals they're looking for, where they're looking. These are basic questions that you can ask. Do they actually qualify to be able to take a deal on through an agent? Do they have 12 months worth of company accounts or a guarantor if necessary? These kinds of things need to be questioned from the outset, so you know what bucket to put them in, so you know how to categorize them. And now it's not that if they haven't got 12 months worth of accounts or if they haven't got a guarantor that I just park them to one side and forget about them. No, it doesn't work like that. This is a win-win business, right? They might have funds, but they've just not got the 12 months accounts, or they've not got a guarantor. Guarantor is basically, for those of you who don't know, is somebody who guarantees the rent should your company not pay it to the agent or the landlord. Now, without a guarantor or 12 months company accounts, it's very challenging to take a deal on through an agent. So what would that person do? So what I would do, if they would fall into a bucket which I call win-win, for a situation where they don't tick the boxes. Now, that means that I would potentially match them up, especially if they had funds, and they said that in the questionnaire. I would match them up with someone who's looking to get started. They might not have much time, but they can act as a guarantor and they want to learn a little bit more about how to do it. So that would actually be a good JV. So I'd put person X who didn't have the 12 months worth of accounts or guarantor in touch with person Y who can act as a guarantor but just doesn't have as much time. So there's always ways of creating win-win situations. So the purpose of the question is not just to pre-qualify people, but to also bucket the people that didn't qualify, and ask yourself if there's opportunities for you to match them up or introduce them to other people. And that way you're really adding value to people's lives. And that's when this game becomes really fulfilling. I mean, property can be a very boring business, I find, unless we're genuinely focused on trying to help people. So I think try and put that in the forefront of your mind, and you'll probably enjoy the work a lot more as well. So another thing I see is people are allowing deals to slip through their fingers too easily, not having investors lined up and failing to create a win-win with the agent, which should put you in a position of priority amongst other interested parties. So now we're in a position where we basically get deals coming to us before the agents even put them on the listings or on the pools online. That's the kind of position you want to be aiming for. And the only way you're going to get there, it doesn't matter how good of an introduction you gave them or how good of a proposal you gave them. If you're not taking deals off them quick enough, they're always going to choose the person or the company that did. So if you know a deal stacks up and it works, you need to be ready to source that onto your investor straight away. Now, that's why it's important to have your investor relationships strong and people who are willing to just step in, come and view the property and take the deal without the dramas or without the need for you to influence them heavily to buy it. Now, that's why the pre-qualifying process is so important. So further typical mistakes to avoid is mismanaging deal flow. So you could have so many deals coming through. You could have 10 deals coming through, not a single investor ready to buy it. That then means you've wasted so much money on your VA if they've been searching deals, or your own time searching these deals, and you've got nobody to sell them to. So there's got to be a balance. So make sure while you're building your deal pipeline by searching deals, you're also building your investor pipeline. So you've actually got people who'll buy them, because ultimately that's the goal that we're working towards. Now, the guys that I work with on my trainings, what they benefit from is they do the training with me. And then while they're trying to build their investor network, I'll put any deal opportunities that that they have out to my investor network. So they get to leverage my investor network while they're growing. And I've helped quite a few people source their deals as a result of that. So not being clear with investor about expectations from the outset. So it's important to be clear. So say, for example, if we source deals, we let them know from the outset that this deal that if you're interested in taking this deal on, the next steps will involve signing a sourcing agreement, paying the sourcing fee up front, and then the viewing is arranged. The sourcing fee is fully refundable if no offer is made or if it's rejected, and we're very clear on that. And yes, we do get a lot of investors saying, "Oh, I'm not interested, then I'm not paying anything up front," and I completely get that, and I completely understand that. But that's not. We want to work with just a handful of investors who are ready to move quickly without wasting our time, and that's what we've got, and that's in alignment with building a streamlined sourcing business without the headache of having to chase people up after they've gone and viewed a property to still find out if they're actually serious or not. That can take a lot of time. It can be very draining, and it's not something that we're willing to do. So protect yourself and your and the other party. People are not protecting themselves or the other party without, because they're not using a contract. So I hear so often that a sourcer might have recommended a deal to an investor, and then the investor wasted their time. This is a purpose. That's the purpose of having a contract. So you're on the same page, and you've got a clear agreement with what you're working towards. Basically, if they go and view the property and they've paid the sourcing fee and an offer is made, provided that offer's accepted, then at that point, and they've passed referencing, the fee is non-refundable and they go ahead and move forward with that deal. If they do view the property and it's not suitable for them, then we have 2 weeks to find them an alternative deal. And if they're not happy with the alternative we supply, then they receive the refund. So it's important to have that in contract and have that in writing, because it makes your life easier. It makes their life easier. It's in black and white. It's best for everyone. And it makes you compliant as well. So allowing the investor to view without an initial fee, that's what I mentioned earlier as well. That's part of your pre-qualifying process. On some occasions, we might allow 50% upfront and 50% after, but most of the time it's upfront. And as I said, it's a great way to pre-qualify them. Marketing the property, marketing the opportunity incorrectly without the true potential clearly visible. So sometimes I've seen people advertising deals on social media, and there's so much more potential in the deal that they've actually advertised it for to potential investors, and they're cutting themselves short. They're leaving themselves short, and as a result, they're not benefiting, and they're wondering why their deals are not selling. Now, a great example could be that they might not have done the number crunching properly. And that's why it's important to know how to crunch the numbers, how to know if a location is viable, how to assess the average night rate. Providing comparables is good as well, because it allows the investor to actually see, hold on a minute, here's some other apartments in the same area, and this is the night rate that they're getting here. The purpose is to make it as easy as possible for the investor to make a decision, and giving them all the resources that they need to be able to make that decision. So packaging the deals, the process. So build relationships with agents, landlords, and investors, pre-qualified investors, which we were talking about. Number crunching strategy for ensuring deals qualify for an investor to view. So you need to have a process for building relationships as well. It needs to be very structured. How are you building relationships with agents? How are you building relationships with landlords and investors? And what are you doing to pre-qualify them? Maybe not the agents as much, but you need to be pre-qualifying landlords and investors heavily. Investors especially. Landlords, we do pre-qualify landlords. There's been times where we've just felt like Emma, for example, our property manager, if she feels that the landlord will be a hard one because she just feels the relationship doesn't click, or she just feels that it will be hard because they're just asking for too much and they're just trying to bleed us dry, we will leave the deal. We'll just leave it and we'll just move on. And the reason we'll do that is simply because we just want it to be in alignment with our goals without it turning draining. Of course, with each deal you'll have your challenges, but you've got to be able to identify who your ideal client is and who you want to work with, because ultimately that's what's going to enable you to get the most out of this business. number crunching strategy for ensuring deals qualify for the investor to view. So we have two stages. Stage one is just basic shortlisting the deals. Stage two is further scrutinizing the deals, going over the numbers, looking at the location, microing in on that location. So almost finding, say for example, you're doing E14 in Canary Wharf. There's certain parts of E14 that are not great, and there's other parts that are great. So it's important to know that, and that will fall into stage two of the number crunching, where they'll look further into the deals and go deeper into maybe looking at the same block to see what kind of rates are being achieved there. If anybody else has got apartments there, have they got lots of reviews? So it's just goes a level deeper to help make that final decision whether it actually qualifies or not. And then, by the way, the person who does stage one and stage two are different. And then eventually, the person who does stage one learns how to do stage two. And once the person who's doing stage two is convinced that the person who's doing stage one understands stage two, they'll leave them to it. So contacting agents to confirm viability and suitability for investors. So it's important to confirm that it's available on the basis that you want to take it on for, whether it's a HMO, which is a house of multiple occupancy, or serviced accommodation, or a lease option. You need to make sure that it's actually viable to take on that basis. Pointless finding deals, packaging them up, only to realize afterwards that it's not even okay with the agent. So packaging the deal, the format for it should include the description, the images, comparables, the deal analyzer, which shows how you've crunched the numbers. It doesn't necessarily always need to include the deal analyzer. And the reason I'll say that is because I find that investors sometimes have their own way of crunching the numbers. So provided you've given the rental amount and what you projected the bills to be, sometimes that can be enough. And then if they ask for a breakdown of the figures, then we'll send it. And that works fine as well, because that way it gives the investor the freedom to crunch numbers their way. Because sometimes they will have their own way of doing it. And then when they see our way of doing it, it might conflict with theirs, and that might impact their buying decision. So it's important to give them that freedom as well. Again, we find with our investors, we just send it out with conservative figures and optimistic figures. So it gives them a bit of an idea of what can be achieved, and they can make their own decision on where they think it will be, what they think they will achieve. But ultimately, we always go by conservative figures when taking on deals for ourselves. Sending investors the opportunities and following up. So the follow-up is so important. I find people send out deals to investors, they don't follow up. And what that results in is not just missing out on the opportunity for that specific deal, but all future opportunities as well. It almost impacts the level of trust with a person that you might have just been getting to know. So it's important to have a follow-up process with every investor. Even if they chose not to take it, it's important to ask them, why? Was there any reason? Is there anything we could do differently for you? And that's where all the learnings and the lessons come from, and that's where the growth comes from. So the legals, what contracts do I use and why? So introducer agreement will confirm your position and the investor's position in the equation. Now, that basically protects you from the investor cutting you out when they go to the agent and then potentially striking more deals with that same agent. So the introducer agreement basically means that they can't do business with that agent, not just on that deal, but even after that deal. And then you've got the fee undertaking agreement, and that confirms the sourcing fee when it's due, the refund policy on it. So all the grey areas are dispelled from the outset. And it's important that you give your potential investor an opportunity to ask as many questions as they need to prior to the viewing. That does two things. You can pre-qualify them even when they're asking you the questions, just by assessing the quality of the questions they're asking you. And the other thing it does is it creates a level of transparency, which is important in any business. Yeah. So it adds professionalism to your approach and structure by protecting both investor and deal sourcer. There is a lot more structure you can put legally into your business, which I go through on my online deal sourcing training about how to set up and making sure that you're compliant in your sourcing business. So the types of deals to look for. Now, I mentioned earlier on rent-to-rent SA, serviced accommodation. So rent-to-rent serviced apartment deals are great deals to source for investors. They sell quickly. They're in demand. 2017 was the biggest year for serviced apartments. They don't require much initial outlay, which is appealing for investors. So including the sourcing fee, the fees are still quite low. Typically, an SA deal, you're looking at 6-week deposit, month advance rent, agency fees on a property that's say £1,500 a month. That's about all in, including the sourcing fee of about £2,000. That will be about 6 to 7 grand for somebody to take on, including the sourcing fee, which I think is quite good. So the deals appeal to investors a lot more. Then you've got rent-to-rent HMO deals. They're great deals too, as they produce great profits for investors. Now, HMO, house and multiple occupancy, they're different to serviced apartments in the sense where you have tenants and not guests, meaning that they are likely to stay there for long term, not just on a nightly rate. So it will be 6 month. It'll be 6 month contracts. Usually, if you're doing a good job, they'll extend. And the HMO, usually you focus on bringing like-minded people together. And the way that the rooms are rented on a HMO, it's usually all bills included. And you go for full-time professionals on most HMOs. It all depends on the market. You could be, I know, up north, some people will do it on near Wolverhampton. I know somebody doing it there. He specifically does HMOs for DSS tenants. Same in Medway as well. So it's about knowing. But when you're doing rent-to-rent HMO, usually you're doing it for full-time professionals because it's not even your property. So you want to make sure it's maintained to the highest of standards. And by having professional tenants in there, what you'll find is most of the time they're at work and they come home, they just want to relax and go to sleep. So they're not at home all day, potentially like DSS tenants might be. So there's a lot less chance of wear and tear and dramas going on in the property. So rent to rent HMO is really good. And I just want to play, got a short clip here from James. This was when he was first starting out with his SA journey. So let's have a look. James,
I hope you're well. I just thought to do a little video of this service accommodation I've just come across close to the Excel Centre. And I just wanted to sort of share a few things I've done this week, just to give you the other heads up of what I've been up to. Pretty brand new to SAs. This potentially will be my second SA, so I'm quite excited about that. And I just wanted to sort of tell you about my week, basically. So this week, I've been spending a lot of time with Peter. So Peter, I'm on his platinum platinum group, and I've had the opportunity to meet him for lunch and discuss a few things about what I'm doing, where I'd like to go in my strategy. So initially I was doing sort of rent to rent and then service accommodation at the same time. But by spending time with Peter and actually being accountable for everything I'm trying to achieve, it's my accountability partner as well, just to make you aware. So in terms of when we decide on actions, who's doing what and are we actually delivering on it, so we can actually be accountable for what we're doing, our actions and our responsibilities as well. But what I found is for spending time with him this week, and I've been able to really focus on what my strategy is going to be. So I'm going to be focused on sales accommodations going forward, and and also ensuring that I'm getting 2 to 3 viewings every single week. So this week I've already done 1 viewing, and this will be my 2nd viewing. I made sure that I fitted it in, even though it's a Sunday, just to make sure that I am meeting my quota of achieving my goals. And the more viewings, obviously, potentially more deals are coming in as well. And the other thing as well is that I just focused on actually how to systemize my business. So focusing on how I can actually streamline my business, that it can actually be running, and as well as working a full-time job, it can be quite stressful and quite time-consuming as well. So focused on a VA and a property manager, as well as looking at different OTA channels as well. So with Peter's help, I've been able to really systemize my business, and I've set myself a target to achieving 6K by May of this year. So that's really given me a good focus as well. So I just wanted to say really that it's been very beneficial for me. I've been able to focus my energy, focus my business, streamline my actions and my system, and making sure that my actions are being delivered and being an action taker, really. So, and the other tip I would say as well is make sure you really speak to concierge. I'll come to view this property today, and through the concierge, I'll be able to find out who the developer contacts, the management company contacts as well, so the property management company for the building, as well as private landlords as well. So private landlords are actually struggling to get people in here in terms of tenants. So fingers crossed, I have some good news for you. Hope you all have a good week. Happy Sunday, and keep taking action and keep achieving your dreams. Take care.
Brilliant. So that was James sharing with us a little bit about how he got started. James is doing incredible now. I believe he's on 8 essays now. I'm not too sure. Don't quote me on that. But he's an action taker. He goes out there, he takes action. He's been in his job, does a lot of hours in his job, but he works very hard. He goes out there, takes action, gets results. But I would be lying to you guys if I said to you that this is an easy business. If you're actually doing the essay like James is, there's a lot more work involved in terms of managing the essay, getting it set up. If we're talking about deal sourcing, I'd say in some ways it's easier because you don't have to actually go out there and do what James is doing in that instance. But if you want to grow this as a 5-figure a month business, it will require effort in a sense where you've got to be willing to search deals consistently. Even if it's for the first week or 2, that's fantastic if you're able to do that. Even if it's for like 30 minutes to 45 minutes a day, because that, with the way that I show you how to streamline it, will then enable you to step away from that task, bring a VA on board, let the VA take care of the deal searching, you focus on the investor relationships, and then bring a VA on to do the appointment setting, calling agents. And ultimately, once you've got those 3 areas, the boxes ticked for those 3 sections of your business, you'll start to see results coming in, provided that is done consistently. So other ways to increase the sourcing fees whilst maintaining value for your clients. So this goes back to what we mentioned earlier about maximizing profits whilst maintaining the value. So no money down deals are worth more. You can imagine if you were able to target landlords directly and you found a deal that didn't require you to pay a deposit. Now, that can be negotiated simply because if it's a HMO deal, for example, you would come from the angle of the fact that the tenants in the property are likely to pay deposits. Therefore, you won't require, so to the landlord, you would mention that they wouldn't require a deposit from you because of that, because the tenant's deposits will protect against any damages. And usually it's quite normal for rent to be paid 30 days in arrears. And the reason I say it's quite normal is because when you look at what a letting agent does, they never pay a deposit up front and they never pay a rent up front. They always get the keys to the property and they never pay either of these up front. And neither should we. We're not a letting agent, but we are an agent to a certain degree, especially if we was taking the deal on ourselves. if you're sourcing the deal on, you'd mentioned that the investor would be looking to take it on this basis. That being said, that wouldn't be a deal breaker if you could see that the landlord was reluctant to do it without a deposit, and that was the difference between getting the deal and not getting the deal. Then of course you'd probably still structure it and take it on even with paying a deposit. But you can, again, once you've built relationships with landlords, you can, if you know you've got a good relationship with the landlord, you can try and propose that and see what they think of it. But for us, we really don't see it as a proposal at all, because we find that what we offer is far better than what any letting agent offers anyway. So if letting agents are able to get it on this structure, then why shouldn't we be able to? Given the fact that we can also help towards maintenance. Now, that's me coming from the angle of, say, a HMO operator or an SA operator. Bearing in mind that as a deal sourcer, you're initially talking on their behalf, which is good to a certain degree, because it's almost like you've given the landlord a bit of an insight and raised some curiosity about who these investors are, and then they want to know more. Not always, sometimes they don't want to know more, and that's the reality. But it's a numbers game. The more you put yourself out there, the more opportunities that will come your way. Great example is Tommy, for example. She's on the one-to-one mentorship. She stepped into it with her partner, Darian. They've been taking action. I didn't hear from them for a few weeks. I got a bit worried and I reached out. I said, what's going on? And they've just told me they've been doing direct mailing. They've got 2 potential direct to landlord deals, 1 through an agent, and that's all like within a month. But they've been putting the work in. That's the only reason I've not heard from them. So no money down deals are a great way to increase the sourcing fees, because they're worth more, because the profitability of the deals are a lot more, and the setup fees, you reduce them massively. So a deal that already has bookings into the future. So if you were to be a bit more hands-on, not just source the deal, but actually set it up, that deal will be worth a lot more. But ultimately, you're probably less likely to want to sell it after putting all that effort in anyway. Proven track record in the same block. If you're able to provide comparables, that puts you in a position also, because it just adds a lot more value to the deal in terms of an investor's buying decision. A deal that is already fully functional, operating and profiting, is likely to be able to sell for more as well. And JV with an influencer in the world of sourcing. So if you know any deal sources, including me, you can reach out to them, and the chances are you'd probably still get the same sourcing fees you would if you sold it yourself, because if you're leveraging an influencer, usually they're able to charge slightly more, just because the fact that they've built the integrity and the reputation up, and that's the reason they're an influencer in the industry. So focus on the win-win. Focus on the relationship with investors and agents at all times throughout the process. Maintain regular communication with the agent and the investor throughout the entire process. The amount of deals that I see that fall through because communication goes down the moment they've let the investor go and do the viewing with the agent. The deal is not finalized until the moment the investor has signed the paperwork with the agent, and you've always got to remember that. So it's important to nurture the entire process and not just think, oh, they've viewed it, they've said yes, and it's all fine now. Never overhype the average night rates or profits is not the way to do ethical business, because if we overinflate it and then it doesn't stack up to those night rates, it's only going to leave the investor disappointed and you lose credibility. If you know helping the investor get set up in their first month would seal the deal, then offer it. And you might add a little bit of value in the process of doing that for them, and they're more than likely to come back to you again. Be clear on how much time support you can give them in the contract. So if you are going to do that, have a contract. If you want to do what I believe to be one of the best ways forwards right now, is you could potentially source the deal and manage it for a percentage fee, 15 to 20% a month. And I think that's a great way to get involved without putting any of your own money in. Instill confidence with both investors and agents by positioning yourself as the go-to person. And the way you do that is by being clear on exactly what it is you want, what your proposition is, and how you can help the agent to actually save them time. how you can help investors by making it a win-win. If they've not done a certain strategy before, but they want to invest, then that could be an opportunity to manage it for them on their behalf. Again, these are the kind of questions you'll pre-qualify them on before you actually provide them with any deal. The last thing I would want to do is provide a deal to an investor who I'm a bit unsure about whether they're able to handle the investment. And if I was unsure about that, I would then probably suggest maybe introducing them to someone who I know can handle it and ask them if they're open to that opportunity, and be honest and transparent with them about your reasons. And I think that's worth its weight in gold. Starting with zero. So search for potential deals online, build investor relationships. Facebook is a great starting point. Make sure you pre-qualify them. Call agents, focus on how to handle objections and positioning yourself for results. Package up the yes deals. So the agents and landlords that have said yes, make sure they get packaged up and send them to investors with whom you've engaged interest. Now, none of these steps involve you having to put money in from the moment you search the deal to the moment that you send it out to investors. Provided you've got an internet connection, you can call agents. You can get going pretty much with zero. Source your first deal, get the funds into your account, and start growing your business. Building my investor network. Now, you might be asking, how do I do that? So know your target market. Who are the type of investors that you want to work with? Are they time wasters or serious about the deals? Profile what an ideal investor looks like to you in terms of current job, business owner, the demographics, the characteristics. And then do a background check on Facebook. There's no point an investor telling you that they're serious about taking a deal on, and the reality is they're just wasting your time. So always just do a quick check on Facebook. I mean, if you can't judge a book by its cover, but usually if you scroll down someone's timeline, it'll give you a little bit of an insight. You won't always get it right, but it's just further background and peace of mind for yourself. So building your investor network, networking events are good. BNI meetings are good. Social media, like I said, Facebook groups, LinkedIn. We've got Facebook group for deal sourcing as well. If you're not already part of that, just mention in the chat box and I'll send you the link. Where to promote my deals and why. So like I said, Facebook groups are good. We've got a deal packaging group, about 600 members. So you're more than welcome to post any deals in there. Email marketing to your current list of investors. And then you can use my fast track service where like I mentioned earlier, you can leverage our investor network and we'll send out the deals to our investors for you. And then streamlining your deal sourcing business, hiring a VA for your deal searching, and hire a telemarketer for making outbound calls to agents for booking viewings and liaising with investors. Utilizing CRM, using calendars for scheduling relevant appointments, and using DocuSign for sending contracts to investors. These systems that I've just mentioned here are very basic. You don't need fancy software to run your deal sourcing business initially. The steps that I've just shared here is more than enough to get you to 5 figures easily. And it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg to set this up either. I've actually set my sourcing business up to be able to run from an iPhone. So I don't even need to lift the lid of a laptop to do it. I've got all the apps in one section in my iPhone. It's called Deal Sourcing. I can go through those apps and literally run it through there. So the more, like I said, the more complicated you try and make it, the more likely you are to hold yourself back from achieving what you need to deserve, what you deserve to achieve. So my message to you is keep it simple, take action, search deals, make the calls, and ultimately get the investors booked in for viewings. So develop an investor typical objection sheet as well, which outlines how to tackle them strategically and influentially. You might have objections from an investor about a typical deal because they might have one way of doing it, but it's important to if you're confident in what you're doing, which you should be if you was to do my training, you should be able to handle the objections positively and enable them to see why it actually is a deal. And know what a deal actually looks like and what it doesn't look like, and ultimately handle every objection. Never leave a objection like a stone unturned. Again, because you're not just losing an investor on that deal, but you're losing an investor on future deals when you do that. So scaling 5 figures monthly, if you want to achieve that, sourcing 2 to 5 deals a month, you'll be on your way. Now, I'm not saying that's easy. 2 to 5 deals averaging a sale of say £1,500 each, that would be on 5 deals, 7.5 grand. On 2 deals, that would be 3 grand. So 3 grand to 7.5 grand is achievable with 2 to 5 deals a month. Now, if you work smartly and streamline the searching and focus on building investor relationships, you've already positioned yourself to get there. There's no reason why a person, even in full-time employment, shouldn't be able to source 1 deal a month, right? We're not talking about crazy goals here, just 1 deal a month. And then you might work towards doing 2 a month. Once you've done 1 a month consistently for say 4 months or something, then you go towards 2, and you might increase the amount of time that's being spent on searching deals, or the amount of areas that you're searching deals, or the amount of investors whose requirements that you're meeting. So there's so many ways to achieve that 2 to 5 deals. It doesn't necessarily need to be from serviced accommodation only. It could be from other strategies like the reason I like sourcing deals for serviced accommodation and HMO is simply because they're easy and quick to sell, because ultimately they can move quickly on the deals. Say, for example, a deal that's a flip or a buy to let. It's not necessary that the investor's going to be able to close that deal within a day or so. With SA and HMOs on rent to rent, usually if you've pre-qualified the investors well and they're already action takers, the chances are that those deals will get snapped up quick. Source on demand, so know what people want and where, then go and make it happen for them. So when you're building your investing network, equally spend as much time finding investors and asking them their requirements and going out there and making it happen. But again, pre-qualify those investors that you're asking. No point getting criteria from people who are not even going to qualify for deals through agents, for example. And then again, on your bucket list, you'd mentioned that any direct to landlord deals, you might send them their way, provided that they can prove to you that they're capable of actually taking a deal on and actually managing it effectively. So you might ask them for more information about the company, how they would approach the management of the deal, because that ultimately is your reputation that's on the line when you source a deal on. Because if the relationship is between you and the agent or you and the landlord, the last thing you want to do is recommend someone who's not suitable for the deal. Guys, we're 10 minutes over. We will wrap up within the next 6 or 7 minutes. I do apologize for going over. So yeah, I can see a lot of you guys are still here, so that's great. I'm just thanking you for your patience, and I hope you're enjoying it so far. So build a virtual team of deal sources, utilize the best one to train the others. That's a really effective method. And that's pretty much it, guys, in terms of where we're at. I've got a workshop on the 23rd, 25th of March, property cash flow intensive. Just want to share with you a little bit about that and what you can expect from that event. So what I'm going to be sharing at that event is deal sourcing, rent-to-rent HMO, rent-to-rent serviced accommodation, and how to build your virtual team. So the purpose of the event, you learn the art of deal sourcing, including how to get agents, vendors, and investors on board so you have a great deal pipeline, building your investor network efficiently and the steps involved to ensuring you work with the right investors, where and how to find the deals, protect yourself and your profits, how to build your remote deal sourcing business and remain compliant. So it is full on, it's quite practical. Even prior to the event, I'll be giving you homework so you actually bring potential deals to the workshop, and the goal will be to actually package them up and actually send them out to the investor list while we're there. And how to find and close profitable HMO deals for rent to rent, positioning your company for massive success, that includes laying the foundations correctly, targeting licensed HMO holders effectively. In case you don't know, a lot of properties in the UK now require licenses, so it only makes sense to have an effective strategy to target the licensed HMO holders, and ones that could potentially turn into licensed HMO holders. Marketing direct to landlords and agents, the proven methods that work. These are methods that have worked for myself and my students. Rent serviced accommodation. So you'll learn how to find the profitable deals via developers, agents, landlords, and investors. Managing your SAs effectively. So this is important because if you're doing the deal sourcing and then you're charging the 15-20% a month to manage them, you want to know the ins and outs of serviced accommodation, exactly how to run it as a business model. Building your power team, especially in serviced accommodation, you do need to have a power team and you need to have a good team, because it does get busy, it does get hectic, especially when you grow. And without the correct infrastructure in place, it can soon become I was going to say a higher paid job, but it can end up becoming a low paid job if the structure is not correct. So know what a deal looks like and how to structure your offer. So it's important to know how to structure it. A lot of deals fall through because the structure is not based around a win-win. When the structure is not based around a win-win, usually the outcome isn't a win-win either. So it's important to keep that focus and know how to structure it. So I'll be sharing with you real examples of how we've structured our deals, live deals that I'll bring to the event. Some of our students who are taking action, they'll be there as well. And the best business model for SA and why. I mentioned earlier, deal sourcing and managing I feel to be one of the best ways forwards. So here's a little bit more about, this is the serviced accommodation training, just running through a little bit about what you can expect there. You'll get the legal pack, the contracts, access to the online training. So the event is in March, on March 23rd to 25th. I'll be coming back to the UK, but I can understand that you'd probably want to get started sooner. So I'm doing an online serviced accommodation training in January, as well as doing a live online deal sourcing training. I've done a recording in the past, but I've got a lot of updates. So I'll be doing the trainings live. You can ask me questions on the training as well. And that gives you a bit of a head start before the March event. So by the time you come there, you might have potential deals that you want to go through. So the purpose is that it'll be a very practical 3-day workshop. It's not just theory based. We pick up the phones, we make calls to agents, we speak to vendors, we strike deals. I show you how to get your virtual assistants on board, how to get them trained up. So it's very practical. And I think that's one of the reasons that the people I work with go out there and get results, because they take the action. It starts from a practical environment, and I think that's really important in terms of achieving your success. And then the deal sourcing masterclass, again, that's an online masterclass training, which you'll get access to prior to the event. I've included that for free as a bonus. And that pretty much covers in a lot more depth what we've discussed today, showing you how to actually go out there and build your deal sourcing business and actually grow it. Not just build a deal sourcing business that creates income for you, but something that actually enables you to operate remotely. I'm really passionate about it. I mean, you might not want to operate remotely. You might have commitments, you might have family commitments, you've got your own goals. That's fine, I respect that. But just having the freedom to know that you can build a business that gives you the freedom to do what you want when you want, I think that's what business is to me. And I'm grateful enough to feel that I've put myself in that position to be able to do what I want when I want. And I honestly believe that deal sourcing is one of those businesses that enables you to get there very quickly, provided that consistent effort is put forwards. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. There is work to be put in. If you're shy of putting the work in, there's only so far you'll go. I'll say that now. But if you actually put the effort in, put the work in, the ROI is incredible. So yeah, And then I've included some bonuses. So you've got access to the lifetime Facebook group, over 1,000 members in the group, in our community, on the deal packaging group, multi-let success community, and the serviced accommodation group. Legal pack for each strategy, that's worth over $9,000. That's for your deal sourcing compliance, serviced accommodation compliance, rent to rent HMO compliance, and you get updates as well. And we spent a lot of time tailoring those contracts with our solicitors to make sure that we're above board. Building your virtual team, that's including your job descriptions, roles and responsibilities checklists will be provided as well. Live online deal sourcing masterclass, that's in January, as I mentioned before. Leveraging my investor network. So I think that's great for people who are first starting out. So you can find your first deal, give it to me to send out to my investor network. If that deal is sourced, that's pretty much paid for your training in itself. You'll get access to audio tutorials of my team calling agents and live calling agents and vendor session at the event. We will be picking up the phones, making calls, getting through any barriers that you might have around handling objections. So by the time you leave that event, you have the confidence of knowing how to structure conversations, how to negotiate, how to close deals, and ultimately how to handle objections confidently, because that is what positions you beyond a lot of other people that might be doing SA or HMO who are not getting deals. We actually find that we're getting flooded with deals right now. And that's not because we've got 100 agents on board. We've got quite a few because we've been doing it for a while, but we've nurtured the relationships in the right way. And as a result of that, we get deals coming to us before the listings go up. So the training usually for the 3-day property intensive cash flow event is $19.99 plus tax. The webinar special offer price is $13.99. And the URL to book on for the workshop is there, multiletsuccess.com/workshop. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys have found this useful. I am going to open up for Q&A. I can see a lot of you guys are still here with 15 minutes over. I would like to sincerely apologize for going over. I hope you've taken a lot of value from it. As I said, the workshop is going to be action-packed. It's going to be content-rich. You'll have students there of mine. James, I'm hoping, will be there. I'll be inviting some of our other action-taking community members as well to share their journeys and how they've gone out there and made it happen. And if you've connected with any of the ones that are taking action, which is quite a lot, you'll probably find that they're doing quite well and they do put the work in. And my goal and vision is to inspire and impact the lives of as many people as possible. I haven't run as many events over the last year. I won't be running many next year, probably 2, simply because I'm at a stage in my own journey now where I want to be focusing more on my growth as well. So yeah, the event will be action-packed, and it'll be a great opportunity to take your existing property journey to the next level, or if you're first starting out, it'd be a great opportunity to learn practical steps that you can actually walk away with from that event, a clear step-by-step plan that you already start implementing while you're there, knowing that when you get back home, you're ready to kick off with it and take things to the next level. And that's what this is all about. So I hope you guys have taken value from it. I am going to open up for Q&A now. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to fire them in the chat box, and I'll handle them accordingly. I've got no questions coming through, guys. But you're all here. Can I just get a raise the hand icon from you guys just to confirm you're all here? Brilliant. All right, I'm getting raised the hand icon. Can I just get some feedback if you found this training useful? Any questions relating to what's been shared? Okay, no questions. Wow. All right. Well, guys, I hope you guys have found this useful. I'm still going to be on the chat probably for the next 5-10 minutes. If you want to ping me any questions in the chat box, feel free to go for it. I've had James. Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate the positive comments, and yeah, I look forward to catching up with you soon. So yeah, I've got one question here as well. As a newbie in the sector, I found this very useful, and I hope when I get to the stage I can feel, okay, thanks a lot, Shannon. I'm pleased you found it useful as well. Again, the purpose for me is to just give you guys as much value in the time that I can. Just so you guys know, it's actually 5:20 a.m. So I actually gave up my sleep to be with you guys today at 4 o'clock in the morning. But I was willing to do it. I've not done a webinar for a long time. But as I said, for me, this stuff, I'm passionate about it, and I hope you guys have got a lot of value from it. I've got a question here. If you find a deal, how do you make sure it doesn't get sold? Okay, so that's a good question. So if you find a deal, how do you make sure it doesn't get sold? I'm assuming you mean how do you make sure it doesn't get sold to another investor or another person who might have found a deal online? Again, this boils down to relationship with the agent. So what you need to be doing is, if you've found a deal and you're trying to sell this on to an investor, and you've arranged for them to go to the viewing, once they've done that viewing, your responsibility is to keep in touch with that agent on a consistent basis. When I mean consistent, I mean like nearly every day. Not necessarily you, it could be your VA who does it eventually, because that keeps you in the loop about whether they're doing viewings with other people. And then you know exactly where you stand on the deal, and then you know how much like you might need to let the investor know that they need to get a move on because someone else is interested. So it's almost like you need to keep that relationship with the agent and always ask them, has anyone else like booked interview it? But what you find is a lot of agents will lie as well because they just want you to take the deal quickly as well. So you can also like anonymously ring up and ask to book a viewing, and that helps to understand how much interest it's got. But really there's no black and white answer to it. The only thing you can really do is eliminate the risk of it getting sold. Best way you can do that is by having a good relationship with the agent so they keep you well informed, and keep in touch with them consistently after the investors viewed the property. And if the deal works and the investor is an action taker, just let them know that you've got other investors who are interested in the deal, and you should have if you've built your investor pipeline. So the best way to make sure it doesn't get sold is by having a great investor pipeline. So if one is taking too long, you can put the other one in, and then you got to bucket your investor list and prioritize the people that move very quickly on deals. We've had investors who have taken on deals without even going to view the property, just by seeing a video viewing. Now, I'm not saying everyone should do that, but for us, that's great. It makes things easier for us. Things move a lot smoother. Things are a lot quicker, So, yeah, that's my answer to your question. Do you always have to negotiate the deal before you sell it on? what do you say to estate agents when you're sourcing the deals? Do you always have to negotiate the deal before you sell it on? Not always, but it's good to agree the basics. What I mean the basics is to agree it to a standard where you know it's profitable. What do you say to estate agents when you're sourcing the deals? So again, that's something that I'll go through in a lot more detail on the training. You'll have not just me showing you. We'll be doing the live calls. I'll have my VAs doing them as well live, so you can hear them going through it, and then the scripts will be provided as well. Legal contracts. I know, Jordan, you're asking about the legal contracts. Again, they're provided as part of the training, so you get all your contracts for deal sourcing, service accommodation, and rent-to-rent HMO. How difficult do you find investors agreeing to put 50% to 100% of sourcing fee down before viewing? Okay, that's a good question, James. I would say about 20% of from experience with investors that I've worked with, about 20% will pay up front. You'll get people who come close. There is one alternative you can offer, but I still don't even do that. But I do suggest it to people if they feel that their investor network is slow, especially on the first deal. A lot of people are very skeptical on the first deal to fund it. So if it's your first deal that you're sourcing, you could say to them, look, we charge 100% sourcing fee up front. The contract's in black and white. It's fully refundable if it doesn't go through, and if we can't get you an alternative within 2 weeks. But if they're still a bit skeptical because it's the first deal, you can say, well, look, what I'm going to do for you, because it's the first deal, you can potentially ask them to screenshot proof of funds, showing that they've got proof of funds, and get them to send that to you, and then meet them at the property. That's one way that could potentially do it. But I still wouldn't prefer that. I'd still prefer to have the sourcing fee up front. It just makes it easier for you, knowing that you're working with a real action taker who isn't going to waste your time. You know, it's what separates the people who are serious from the ones that are kind of serious from the ones that are just not serious at all. So I've got someone asking here, how do you find good VAs to work for you? Oh, I've had my fair share of bad ones. I've had loads of dramas. I can tell you, I've been doing work with VAs for best part of like 4 years now, and I've tried to build virtual teams for a long time, and I feel like I'm getting there now. But it's not easy to find good VAs unless you know what you're doing. On the training, the 3-day intensive, I've put together a section on building your virtual team. And it's quite a big section based on my learnings, how to do it effectively, typical miscommunications that take place, how to avoid them, how to lay the foundations, what not to do with your VAs and what to do with your VAs, in a sense of how to structure their position so they get the most of it without abusing it, and making sure that they're actually working during those hours, knowing that there's so many ins and outs to it. I could probably do another webinar just on that. But yeah, you've got to have a good vetting process. You've got to know what you're looking for. You've got to have clearly defined job descriptions, and you need to know how to pre-qualify them before they even have the interview with you. And you've got to know what characteristics you're looking for and why you're looking for those characteristics. So yeah. Nav, thanks a lot for the feedback. I said it was really informative. James asked for slide 15, no problem. Any other questions, guys? Okay, brilliant. Okay, I've got excellent. So I'd just like to say thank you to each and every one of you for attending the training. I trust you found it valuable. And yeah, keep in touch. If you've not added me on Facebook, please do, Peter Singh, and I'll add you to our deal sourcing group. There'll be a lot more content going in there over the next few days and weeks. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with you guys again soon. So again, if you are interested in attending that workshop in March, feel free to book on using the link. If you've got any questions relating to the event, feel free to email us on info@petersing.co.uk. And on that note, I'd just like to say thank you for taking your time out, investing your time in your growth. And I look forward to the actions that you guys will take and the results that will come as a result of that. So on that note, take care. Bye for now.